Hi, I'm Stephen Finn and welcome to our 5-part A-Level Biology revision sessions. We are covering 5 different topics over the next 5 weeks before the exams. So today we're going to be covering evolution, but if you would like us to cover a different topic altogether over our next 5 weeks, please comment below and subscribe to our channel. Today we're going to have a little look at evolution by natural selection, which is Charles Darwin's theory of evolution. So we're going to try and break it down quite quickly into some very easy steps to make sure that you can get maximum marks in the evolution questions that you find in the A-Level biology paper. Now, there is so many different ways in which they ask you questions about evolution. It could be looking at the evolution of bacteria and how they've become resistant to antibiotics. It could be just how we used to have short-necked giraffes and long-necked giraffes, and now how all of our giraffes now have long necks. Okay, so it could be anything related to that. So today, the way I'm going to split it up into quite an easy mnemonic, which will kind of make you remember the key main steps. Now, you do have to bulk it out a little bit and put it into full sentences, but at least if you remember this mnemonic, you can make sure you're hitting all of the valuable key points that are found within the mark scheme. Okay, so to begin with, what we will have a look at is this mnemonic, which I refer to as VOSSARG. So it's VOSSARG. Okay, so to begin with, the main thing of evolution, right? The main reason why we get evolution by natural selection is because within a particular species and amongst different species, there are so many different variations, right? Now, that means that, for example, if we look at the human species, we know there's lots of people with different hair colour, different skin colour, different eye colour, different heights. These are all a variety of different variations. Now, the reason why we get different variations is because we all have different versions of the same gene, which we refer to as alleles. Now, so say, for example, some of us might have we've all got the gene for hair colour, okay? Some of us might have the gene for the allele for hair colour, which is brown hair. Some of us might have the allele for hair colour, which is ginger hair. Okay, so we all have different alleles, which is the different versions of the same gene. Now, they are brought about by mutations over millions of years, thousands of years. Okay, so over that time, those mutations in the genes have occurred, which has created this variety of different alleles. Okay, so there's your V for VOSSARG. So talk about your variations first. Talk about how also amongst different kind of species, especially species in the wild, human beings not so much, but species within the wild, when they do have offspring, they overproduce. Oh, there's your O. Now, what I mean by overproduce is they don't usually just have one offspring or sometimes 2 offspring. Quite often they have multiple offsprings at the same time, which often quite have a variety of different alleles, different versions of the same gene. Now, that is really beneficial for a species because if you've got lots of different versions of the same gene, okay, that means if something happens and one of your kind of offspring has to adapt to a change in the environment, well, you've got lots of offspring with lots of different variations. And because you've got lots of offspring, that means it increases the chances that your offspring will survive, or at least some of your offspring will survive, and your species will carry on because you've got lots of variation amongst the many different offspring you have produced. There's the overproduce. Now, after overproduce, what we look at is the S in VOSSARG. Okay, so what we have which triggers evolution by natural selection is something which is referred to as a selection pressure. Now, a selection pressure is any kind of change in the environment in which something lives in. Now, that doesn't just refer to the temperature, the amount of light, CO2, moisture in the soil and so on. Not just environment in that term, but we also refer to the environment as maybe the introduction of a new predator into that particular habitat or that ecosystem, or the removal of a prey from that particular habitat ecosystem. So it can be any kind of major change within that ecosystem, right? Now, if we were looking at that, so selection pressure, right? And once we've got a selection pressure, that's now going to push something into evolution by natural selection. Okay, so let's imagine now we've got, let's say we've had got a load of mice, right? Parents produced loads of mice, lots of different variations. We've got black mice, white mice, brown mice, right? Now we've produced lots of them, so we've overproduced. They've all got variations, okay? They've got the selection pressure now, right? Because previously, let's say these mice lived on a nice soil land, okay? So it was all nice brown land, right? And all of a sudden, let's say there's an environmental change, which was a selection pressure. So it started to snow, and the snow laid on the ground for a very long time. Now that's a change in the environment. Now, because of that, our next S comes into play. Now, which is survival of the fittest. Okay, so this is V for variation, O for overproduce, S for selection pressure, S for survival of the fittest. So amongst those many mice, what will start happening is they'll all struggle to survive a bit. They'll all be kind of struggling because of the environmental change. However, the white mice, right, because it's snowing, they have what we refer to as the advantageous allele, because they have the version of that gene to have white fur, which allows them to be camouflaged in that particular area. Now, because they're camouflaged, that means all these birds swooping down, trying to eat these mice. We're going to pick off the black mice, pick off the brown mice, but these white mice are going to be left behind because they're camouflaged in the snow. So that's why we refer to them as having the advantageous allele. Now, so that's your A in VOSAG. So variation, overproduction, selection pressure, survival of the fittest, and advantageous allele. Now, because we've got that advantageous allele now, the others will possibly die out. They'll struggle to survive because of that selection pressure. The ones which have the advantageous allele will reproduce. There's your R. They'll reproduce. They'll pass on their alleles to their offspring. So their offspring will also have the allele for white fur. Now, that again will increase their chances of survival in the snow. They're less likely to be picked off by the predators because they'll be camouflaged. Now, because of that, what will then happen? They will reproduce, pass on their alleles to their offspring. Their offspring eventually will reproduce and pass on their alleles to their offspring. And the final letter is G for gradually over time. So this process of natural selection isn't an overnight process. So gradually over time, what will happen is you'll start to see the frequency of the white allele increasing and the frequency of the brown and black allele decreasing over time, to where at some point you might end up with only white mice. And that will be the next step in evolution for these mice. Okay, so just quick recap. So remember, so natural selection, which is a theory of evolution by Charles Darwin. V, variation. O, overproduction. S, selection pressure. Next S, survival of the fittest, because they had the A, the advantageous allele, and they then R, reproduced, passed on those alleles, and then for G, gradually over time, you were left with a species of mice that only had the allele for white fur and didn't have the allele for black or brown fur anymore. And that was the next step of evolution. Okay, hopefully that was helpful today, guys. If you've got any questions or any comments or any of that, then please drop me a message below. And as well, please subscribe, and we'll continue with these videos with little snippets of kind of A-level biology, chemistry, and possibly maths content which you may need extra support in. If you've got any particular pieces of content that you want more help with, again, please drop us a comment and we'll see if we can create a video on that content. Thank you very much, and we'll see you later. Bye.